Good day, everybody. This is Jason Jimenez with the Bold Saviors, making the impossible possible in business. And today we have a very dear friend of mine by the name of Clay Spitz. And he is someone that I not only consider him as a mentor, but it's someone that I think you will find as someone that has great wisdom and a lot of experience in the realm of different categories in business entrepreneurship, as well as implementing and growing them in a way of marketing, branding, and development. And so with that, Clay, thank you very much for accepting the invite and being with the Bold Saviors.
Thank you, Jason. I appreciate the opportunity, and I'm looking forward to our conversation.
Yeah. So for the people who don't know who you are, would you give us a little bit of background of who you are and what you do?
Sure. Well, I've been a lot of things over my career. Today, I am and have recently launched my new practice called Wise Path Advisory as an executive coach, a mentor, advisor, and potentially a board member on fiduciary boards and advisory boards. And so I'm in a later stage of my career where, I've had my share of successes and failures, but I feel like this is my opportunity to give back to the business community and to other parts of my community and share my time, share my wisdom. Hopefully it's wisdom that I've developed along the way,
right?
Through my share of successes and hard knocks. And, there's a line in a Tim McGraw song called, I think it's called Humble and Kind, that says, when you get where you're going, don't forget to turn back around and give a hand to the next guy. That's obviously a paraphrase, but that's kind of where I feel I am right now.
So you just opened up a question for me. So who is that person who turned around and did that for you?
Oh, Jason, there were so many along my career. I've had so many great opportunities, and in some of the difficult times, there were so many people that turned around and helped me. And so to name any one of them would be to leave people out. But my family has always been an amazing support.
Yeah.
My networking friends, my personal friends, my colleagues in business. I'm very fortunate that I've had so many people along the way.
It's a testament to, from a place of wisdom, I think it's a testament to making sure that people truly understand, especially at the early ages of, it really matters who you have in your life.
It does.
Right?
It does. I've been very intentional over my career of maintaining a good network, people in various positions and professions that I could learn from. And along the way, giving that back to other people who could learn from me.
Yeah.
And that's been a very important part of my life and my career.
That's awesome. And so let's go back in time. Did you always want to be in what you do now in marketing and branding? And is that who Clay wanted to be when he grew up?
Well, interesting you asked that. I grew up in an entrepreneurial family. My father started a business in 1950. And I spent most of my life thinking, oh my God, I never want to do that. Yeah. It was kind of the typical, my dad started a pest control company in Houston. And he would come home and he had all the typical problems every business owner has. People problems and financial things come up, and a truck got stolen, and, insurance problems, and a customer complained about something and there was a claim, and, a million different things that every person who owns a business will understand.
Yeah.
And it was a little bit like he'd come home, talk about all the terrible things that happened, and the implication was, well, son, one day all this will be yours.
Noted.
And so, truth is, I grew up thinking I wanted to be a lawyer.
Okay.
And I know a lot of lawyers who are great people, and no disrespect to the legal profession, but I sat down with some lawyers when I was in high school and thinking about what I was going to major in college. and started talking to them. I said, what do you really do? Because I was in debate in high school, and I thought lawyers go in the courtroom and knock the jury dead, and win a case, and how exciting. And I learned that that's not the life of a lawyer.
Yeah.
That most lawyers spend a lot of time at their desk writing and reading contracts. And even those who are in court spend probably 10 hours preparing for every hour they might be in court. Maybe it's a bigger ratio than that. I said, oh, God, that's not really what I want to do.
Yeah.
Actually, business is pretty interesting. Maybe this path is not so bad.
Yeah.
And so I joined the family business. A couple of years out of college, I was very insistent about wanting to do something outside the family business before I came to work for my dad.
Why is that? Why is that?
Why?
Yeah.
I always felt like I didn't want to just be considered the son of the boss.
Okay. Yeah.
And, he's lucky his father was born before him.
Yeah.
I wanted to have some success outside the family business before I came in. Because I was pretty young. I mean, I was probably 25 when I joined the business.
Right.
And I had a couple of years of management training at a company outside Chicago. And so I came in with more confidence that way. And it wasn't long before I was working with, leading, managing people who were twice my age and had decades more experience than me.
Mm-hmm.
And I never wanted anybody to think I got there because my father was the owner of the company.
For sure.
So I felt like I always had to work harder than anybody else to earn it.
And how long were you there?
Well, from 1978 to 87 is when we sold the business. I took over as president in 84.
Okay.
And we had a great opportunity to sell the business into a roll-up and sold it in 87. Gave my dad a chance to step back and do some different things, and gave me an opportunity to kind of open my world a little bit.
Yeah.
And, I was part of the team that bought 100 companies in 2 years and built the third largest pest control company in the country behind Orkin and Terminix at the time.
Mm.
And what an amazing experience.
So to be put in a position where you have the option to sell and starting into the company with your dad and then getting to the point where you were operating, if you meant leading and managing, what was that like? And how did that come about?
Yeah, well, it was a very uncertain time for me.
Yeah.
A time when I was trying to figure out, do I want to run this business the rest of my life? How could I buy it from my dad? How might that work? What's the opportunity I have in working for a bigger company and being part of M&A and helping roll up a company in a big industry? My dad has his perspective.
Sure.
He'd worked very hard to get the business where it was and had a good legacy there. And he wanted the option to spend a little more time doing some other things. And so it really worked out well that he got his opportunity and I got my opportunity to open up a whole new world.
Yeah.
Scary a bit.
I would imagine.
Never worked for a big company before. And it was a public company that bought us and we were their first acquisition in the pest control business.
So they kind of cut their teeth with you.
They did. They had sought us out. They found us at the national convention, saw we were leaders in the industry, and sought us out to help build this company. My dad actually stayed on to use his network in the business to find other people that were interested in selling their businesses into this roll-up. And, I was part of the team that bought these companies, and M&A was brand new to me at that point. Never done that before. So all of these things have been learning experiences along the way. And like I said earlier, I'm just fortunate to have had these opportunities to learn and to grow.
Yeah.
And I've never been afraid to step into something new.
Yep.
Because it was always a bit of an adventure.
For sure. So was it at that time when marketing and branding came into the picture, or was that later on?
Good question. It was a little bit later on because I was really involved in the operations of this company in M&A, in integrating the companies that we bought, and I was responsible for something like 34 operations from Texas to California, and integrating those operations, getting them all systematized, getting the entrepreneurs to decide if they wanted to stay with the company that they sold to us, and many of them did, or if they just wanted to step away and retire, and we had to find new management. And so it was, quite a challenge working inside this big company to get all that done. And then they sold us few years later to one of the big guys in pest control, who we thought we'd never sell to those guys. And then all of a sudden, I'm part of those guys.
Yeah.
And so another new experience, and my territory shrunk and my responsibility sort of shrunk. But they came to me and said, one day they flew me to Memphis, wouldn't tell me why I was going there.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, that was kind of a scary time. And all the CEO's secretary, we called them secretaries in those days, would tell me well, you're not getting fired. Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah. Thanks for that anyway. And the CEO of Terminix, who was the company we sold to, and the parent company, senior VP of marketing, asked me to move to Memphis and be their head of marketing. And I looked at them like they were nuts.
Yeah.
I said, what are you talking about? I'm not a marketing guy. I'm an operations guy. And the senior VP of marketing said, no, Clay, you're a marketing guy. You just don't know it. I always... I'm grateful to him for seeing something in me that I didn't see in myself.
Did you know him already?
Yes, I'd known because I had worked with him, and I had all of these ideas. I wanted to do research into our customers. I wanted to create new programs. I challenged the way that Terminix was doing their contract programs, because a lot of people didn't like what they were doing. And so I said, why don't we find some other ways to do this? And he said, we'll teach you the advertising side. The marketing side is strategy, and you get that.
Because it's the execution the process and the execution truly does matter.
It does matter. It matters very much. But what a lot of people do in marketing, at Chief Outsiders, we called it random acts of marketing, because often it's done without the strategy and the strategic thinking behind it and the good insight behind the strategy.
Yeah.
And so the insight and the strategy pieces were what I was naturally thinking about. The execution, I had a department to do that.
Yeah.
I learned that as we went.
Yeah.
All of that's even more complicated today than it was at that time. But, Paul was right. I was a marketing guy. And so, taking on that role changed my perspective and changed what I did through the rest of my career.
That really was a pivotal moment.
Very much a pivotal moment, a real gift to me.
Yeah.
To give me that opportunity. And I'm glad that I took it. The move to another city was not easy, but...
Did you have to... did you get it? Did you go through a moment of what is this guy talking about?
I said it out loud. I said, what are you talking about?
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
And
then I had to process, can I really do this job?
Yeah.
They're asking me to move to a new city, to be the VP of marketing for, at that time, it was a $500 million company. I've never had a marketing job before.
Yeah.
But, they had confidence in me.
Which is awesome.
It was awesome. It was really helpful. And so I said, if they have confidence in me, I can do this.
Let's run.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah. And so in that process of taking on a new role, new perspective, new initiative through the company, do you recall the very first large project that you had to go through and implement and deliver on?
I do, Jason. It's one of the things I would consider one of my greatest successes in my career. Like all big companies, occasionally there were service problems, there were issues that would come up in the company and that created a pretty fair amount of customer turnover.
Yeah.
And I looked at customers leaving as an affront to the company. But I was in an office where one of the office managers was taking a phone call from a customer, and what I heard standing next to her was, "Yes, Mr. Smith, you want to cancel your service? Fine. What's your address? We'll take care of it. We'll get it off the books today." And I said, wow, there's something wrong with that. We didn't ask, why do you want to cancel? We didn't ask, is there a problem we could solve? How do we fix this? We'd love to keep your business. You're a valued customer. None of that. And so I went to senior management and said, we need to fix this problem, and we can save millions of dollars by, it's not going to be easy, but changing the culture of this company from one that just accepts customer turnover, and we can always outsell the churn, to we value every customer and we take it personally when a customer wants to leave, and we've got to do everything we can to keep them. And so I'd recently read a book by, I forget his first name, but the guy that started Sewell Cadillac, a big Cadillac dealership, and now a bunch of others, called Customers for Life. And I said, that's what we need. We need customers for life. And I put together programs, cost the company a lot of money to put together what my vision was, literally a culture change and a huge communication change in the company, how we communicated with customers, how we dealt with cancellations. I created a call center and made it against the rules for any branch to accept a cancellation from a customer. They had to transfer it to the call center that was trained in how to maximize the retention of our customers. And it saved the company $20 million in revenue the first year from the saving. They were losing $60 million a year.
Or something that could have been solved very easily. Sometimes people just need attention.
That's right. Yeah. There was no attention on that.
Yeah.
And I got the senior management behind it, and the chairman of the parent company was writing articles for our newsletter and how important customer retention was, and the CEO and the branch managers were contributing to that. It was literally a change in the culture of the company, and made a huge difference. And I'm very proud of what we created there.
Yeah, no kidding.
Yeah.
So there are a couple of things that come to mind through that. One is, what I got out of that is that it wasn't just one touch point. It was a numerous amount of touch points over the course of a 12-month span, I would assume, that I think that was critical.
Yeah.
Right?
Well, Jason, when it comes to things like culture, and I mean, we could have a whole separate discussion about culture and how you drive culture in a company, but you either plan it and it's intentional, or it happens on its own. And if it happens on its own, it's very fragile.
Yeah.
But if you're trying to change or create a culture in a company or an organization, constant repetition in different ways from different people, supporting the culture, defining what it is, talking about how do we live this culture, what does it mean to us, how do we demonstrate it to our customers as well as to our employees, is a constant, hard job. And I think most people underestimate how difficult it is to create and maintain a good, positive culture in a company, even down to who you hire and who you keep. I've seen situations where a top-performing salesperson in a company was so toxic to the culture, the right decision, even though they were a top-performing person in terms of the numbers, better to get the bad apple out of the organization than allow that toxicity to translate to other people in the company.
Yeah.
Because it damages the company, it damages the culture.
So what would you say to the individual watching this that says, I got that one person in my office today, but I'm afraid of doing it because I don't know what comes after that?
Yeah. Well, this is not a decision you take lightly. It's not, I'm going to walk in and fire this guy tomorrow.
Right.
You do have to think about the consequences. And so sometimes it takes some soul searching. Is this the right decision?
Mm-hmm.
What am I going to do? How am I going to recover from whatever damage there might be? So how do I plan for this? Do I start looking for a replacement before I make this decision?
Mm-hmm.
How do I make sure I don't make this mistake again and get somebody just as toxic? Is there a way to fix this problem? Firing is not always the right solution.
Yeah.
And so, one of the things I love about what I'm doing today in coaching is helping people through those kinds of decisions, because sometimes you need a sounding board. You need a thought partner to think through those things and think through what are the alternatives. There's always choices. There are always different paths you can take in a decision.
Yeah.
Which is the right one? Which is the right one for me and the business? But sometimes, and I've had this experience before, it's hard to get people out of your organization. It's emotionally very difficult. You're affecting somebody's life and somebody's career. But sometimes the people around you, after it's done, say, what took you so long? We all knew this was a problem.
Yes.
Didn't you? No? Why did it take you so long to fix this?
You're like, why didn't you tell me? I would have acted faster. I mean, there's all these things that come up.
So
right?
all these things that come up, but ultimately as a leader, you have to take responsibility.
100%.
And say, yeah, that's a decision I probably should have made differently or faster or whatever. I should have done something to fix it.
Yeah.
Like I said, firing is not always the best answer. Sometimes there are other ways to rehabilitate a relationship, to fix something, because sometimes people don't know how they're seen by other people. They don't know the effect that they have on other people. Mm-hmm. And some people can change, and you have to coach them through that and allow them the opportunity to fix the problem before you just say, well, we're done.
Yep. So I'm going to pivot a little bit, because some of your story I didn't know. So the mergers and acquisition era is something I didn't know about you. And what intrigues me, especially in the realm of culture. So when a company says, I'm looking to exit in the next 12, 60 months, that is one bucket that you just have to fill, because there is a pre-impact to the people that, quite frankly, are depending on you to make the right decisions.
That's right.
So what would you recommend for someone who is considering exiting, and or at least what that actually looks like? Yeah. And then how do you protect the culture of an environment, knowing that another culture is potentially coming in?
Yep. So there's so many things to think about there. One is, if you're the owner of the business and you're making that decision, what are your priorities? Frankly, some people don't care about the rest of the organization. They're ready to get out. They want to take the money and run.
Yeah.
And, they're not going to do much about that. A lot of it has to do with who is the buyer. There are people I've seen who are very intentional about, do I sell to a strategic? What will they do with my company? Do I sell to a private equity firm? Do I sell to another business owner? What is this transition? And what am I willing to do to make the decision to protect the company, the culture, the people that have helped me get where I am? Because nobody gets there by themselves. And So finding the right buyer that has the right intention. Most business owners, I think, find that they have to stay on for some bit of time. Rarely can somebody sell a business that they've been running, walk out the door and say, I got my money, I'm done. Good luck, guys.
Yeah.
And that transition is critically important. And, one of the things I learned early on that was so valuable, because when the company that was doing the roll-up bought our business, they came in, we had a big meeting, we talked to all the employees, and they made a classic mistake. Now, I understand it's a classic mistake. Don't worry, everybody. Nothing's going to change. We love you the way you are. Keep doing what you're doing. You're great. And we're going to leave you alone, and you just keep doing what you're doing.
Yeah.
I'm sorry. That's one of the biggest lies ever told.
Yeah.
Rarely does that ever happen.
Yeah.
The company that's buying your company is doing so for a reason. It may be they're combining other companies to have something bigger. They may think that they have a way to do it better and improve the profits or improve the revenue, or think that, your company's going to add something to something that they're doing. But there's always change. And to lie to people and say nothing's going to change, Jason, things always change.
Yeah.
And the more transparent you can be about that up front, the better everybody is. The better people can understand their role in the company and where they fit in and how they can contribute to the change, as opposed to resisting the change. Mm-hmm. It's going to come, Mm-hmm. So let's figure out, how do we make it a good change?
You brought up something. I was in a meeting where I had the privilege of being in a room where the CEO of Panera Bread was presenting, and she was talking. And I didn't realize that Panera had a conglomerate of businesses that they were investing in, they had their fingers in. And she brought up she made the statement of that when someone's ready to sell, or they're selling at what they believe where the company, it's met its peak. And the person buying is because they see all of the potential.
Yeah.
And it's two different perspectives.
It is.
And I found that really fascinating, because it completely changed the dynamic of how I operate and what I intend to do, and always remembering that there's always someone seeing something that I'm not.
Right.
And so what would you say, you've already alluded to one of them, but what would you say would be something else that when somebody's looking at considering and selling, or in considering and buying a business, something they need to know that they should be aware of?
Yeah. When you're buying a business, people who know how this is done, as you do, know the process of due diligence.
Yeah.
It's about getting in and figuring out, is this really the right company for us? Are the numbers really the right numbers? Do we have the opportunity we think we have? You can think all kinds of things from the outside, but you've got to be able to validate that the opportunity is really there. And as the business owner who's selling, you have to have your ducks in a row. You have to have your business clean enough and operating well enough, and having the right team in place that can transition to the new owners, that the new owners are able to realize the opportunity.
Yeah.
It's very important in a lot of areas. There are a lot of businesses that are sold under an earn-out condition, where the owner gets a certain amount of money up front, but depending on how things go in the next couple of years, they don't get anything. They get a little bit more. They get a lot more. So you want your business to be in the best shape it can be to allow the new owner that opportunity. Nobody wants to buy a business that they think is topped out.
Right.
Right? As you said, they see something that maybe the owner doesn't.
Yeah.
But the company has to be, unless you're making a fire sale.
Yeah.
And you're just willing to get rid of it, Your books have to be in good shape. Your team has to be in good shape. They need to be able to manage the business without you, because the new buyer is thinking you as the owner are going to cash out, and maybe you'll stay for a year or two, but ultimately your attention is somewhere else.
So here's a question on that note. You're a business owner, or we have somebody listening in and they're a business owner and they're saying, I can't seem to get myself on the business. I feel like I'm in the business. Step one, what do you tell them?
You know, step one in that is you have to change your mindset. You have to be willing to get your head out of all the day-to-day things. And one of the things you have to do as a business owner in order to get there is to learn how to delegate effectively. Learn how to build a team and trust your team so that you don't have to be the center of every decision that's made.
Yep.
And you're not the person that every employee comes to and says, boss, I don't know what to do. What should I do? You have to train your people to take responsibility for their decisions so that they're empowered to allow you to step out of the day-to-day and think more strategically and build a leadership team that is able. It's hard for some people to say, I want them to be able to function without me, because there's a lot of ego and say they need me. Yeah, they're nothing without me.
Yeah.
Right? But you have to let your ego go and say, this organization can and should run without me, and I'll have a better life.
Yeah.
If my people can make decisions and they're not coming to me or calling me in the middle of the night and say, oh, boss, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
You know, if they're set limits, say, here are the decisions you're allowed to make. You don't need to ask me.
Yep.
But if this is above your level, come to me with a recommendation. Don't come to me with a problem. Come to me with a solution, and we'll talk about whether it's the right solution.
Yeah, you bring up something a mentor of mine years ago told me, look, because I was exhausted with the amount of questions of like, I don't know, I need help type of questions.
Yeah.
And it would consume an enormous amount of my day. And he said, look, from this day forward, when someone comes to you and they have a problem, ask them, or if you were me, what would you do? And don't break that.
Yeah.
And don't say anything. Let them express themselves, because by the third, fourth time, they're going to get used to it's like, oh, I can't really go up to Jason and ask him the question without actually thinking of a solution. And it was really around the perspective of teaching them how to fish.
Yeah, exactly.
And being confident in their own abilities and knowing that they did have the skill set, the intellect, the training, the tools to perform. The same mentor told me a year afterwards, he's like, look, sometimes we are just kids in adult bodies, and you're just going to have to just accept that.
Yeah.
And you have to put structures in place that'll give the individual to be empowered so that we are able, as entrepreneurs, be able to be where we really need to be.
Right. Yeah. And sometimes you have to get out of your own way.
Yeah.
I mean, Jason, it's nice to feel like I could come in and save the day. I can solve all the problems in this business. I love people coming to me and ask me because it feels so good when I'm able to give them an answer.
Yeah.
But that's so
it's limiting,
constricting.
Yeah.
And it's hard to get out of being in the business to work on the business when you're so much the savior.
Yeah.
But your team gets used to that too. And then they feel like I'm not empowered.
And that's the culture.
I got to go ask the boss every time I want to spend some money, or is this the right way to fix the problem? So you have to allow people to make mistakes, or not even make mistakes, do it differently than you might have done it.
Yeah, for sure.
If somebody can get to the same end goal, they solve the problem, they spend the right money on the right thing, they save the customer, whatever, if they can get to the end objective in a way that's within the guardrails of the rules and the culture of the company and things like that, but it's different than you might have done it, you have to accept that too.
For sure.
We don't all do things the same way. But if you want other people to be empowered, you have to allow them that freedom.
Yeah. So.
And let me say, freedom with accountability. I learned a long time ago the difference between delegation and abdication. Delegation delegates the responsibility, enough authority to get the job done, and has accountability to report back and get the right result done. Where abdication, and this is where a lot of people make mistakes in their delegation. Jason, you go do it. I don't need to know. You just go handle it, and I'll see you later. Well, then when it's not done well, or it's not done right, or the result is not what you expected, well, you can't go back and say, well, Jason, you really screwed up here. Because I, as the boss, should have said, let's make sure we agree on what the result is. Let's make sure we agree on the timeline. What's the budget for getting this fixed? And can you get this done within those guardrails?
Yep.
And let's check in every once in a while and make sure that we're on the track, especially if it's a longer term process. Let's check in every once in a while, make sure we're all in agreement that we're on the right path here.
Clear communication without set expectations ends up creating chaos or problems.
Yeah.
So you're now in the role of marketing, chief marketing officer for the firm. You've exited there. Where is that next step in your life?
Yeah. So for a lot of reasons, I wanted to move back to Houston. And I was very fortunate to find an opportunity at a company called Telecheck. Not many people know that company today. Very few people write checks anymore. But at the time I was there, a lot of people were writing a lot of checks.
Yeah.
And it was a tremendous experience to be in a different company, a different industry, a whole new set of experiences. And I ran 4 what they called vertical markets that were industries I've never been in before, but we were growing the Telecheck business and certain new products that Telecheck had into those vertical markets. And I was there for 7 years until 9/11 happened. And so many things changed at 9/11. That job went away and I had to do something else. And so another great experience, a great mentor there, the CEO of Telecheck, somebody I still like to stay in touch with, one of the most brilliant businessmen that I've known, entrepreneurs who's been in so many different businesses. And, I learned from him that you can be a genuinely good, nice person and still be demanding and still expect results and still run a really good business, but be really good to people.
Yeah.
And so that was a great, he was a great example for me. And then when I left there, I said, I'm tired of working for big companies. I don't want to do this again. I'm going to buy my own business. And I went out, it took a year, and I found a business and bought a business. And we were a promotional marketing business. And, I was in that a few years. It was the hardest thing I've ever done. And one of those areas in my life, if you said, and I know, we'll talk about this. What's the biggest failure you've had? That was it right there. I made so many mistakes.
So let's just dive into it because I think it's a proper time. So what was the most difficult moment in your journey? And it obviously was around this time. So what happened?
Yeah. Well, the most difficult moment, to get right to that, was I was right in the middle of the business. I was not working on the business. I was working in it. I had employee problems. I had people making mistakes that were costing me a lot of money. I had some big customers that I didn't realize when I bought the business were on a contract that ended at a certain time, and the likelihood we were going to renew that contract became clear was very small. And there was this, minor thing going on where people were starting to buy those kinds of products online from something called the internet.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, it was very early in the years of the internet. And, I missed the trend early on, didn't see that I was going to have to reshape the business, didn't see what the price pressures were going to be, because the people selling high volumes of some of those products online could buy them and sell them much cheaper than I could.
Yeah.
And, I thought I could differentiate that business because of my experience in marketing and, make it something really special. And it turns out it was a commodity business.
Yep.
And the most difficult part of all of this was coming to the realization that this is not working. I have to do something different.
So first question is around that is, do you recall who were the people that helped you get through it? And what did they say, or what did that one person say that gave you peace, if you will?
Yeah, there wasn't peace at that time, but, my dad was an incredible mentor and a great confidant and a great advisor to me, but he brought in some of his business friends because he didn't want his advice just coming from him, because he could see things were not going well. So a couple of those advisors, I remember sitting around his dining room table, going through the numbers and talking to a couple of these guys, and, they're frowning and shaking their heads, and I'm seeing this is going to be tough to pull out of.
Yeah.
And I'm going to have to really kind of change my thinking to come out of this with the skin of my teeth.
Sure.
And it was that realization that you can't just keep doing what you're doing. Working harder is not going to fix this problem.
Yeah. And there's also another lesson that at least I am always trying to share and make sure I get across to either my partners or my clients or the people I serve in our communities. And it's not necessarily the norm or what we were taught, and that is to be comfortable in asking for help.
Yes, very true.
So you've heard me talk about the Dunbar theory, and I've talked about it in the sense that the theory says that you have about 150 people in your life that you can actually maintain and actually have in some capacity control as far as how they impact you. And the one thing that I've always been constant in these last couple of years is people are just afraid of asking for help, knowing that if someone asked them, they wouldn't think anything of it. They would do it, and you have the resources.
Yeah.
And in this moment in your time, whether you knew it or not, you went to a reliable source that had the resources to do a deep dive for you to be given direction. That's powerful.
It is powerful, Jason, and it sounds easy to do.
No, yeah.
But again, our personalities, our egos,
that's right.
What we've been taught gets in the way. Mm-hmm. You're self-reliant. You can figure it out. Yep. People tell you that early in your life, and you think you have to be completely self-reliant because, I can figure this out on my own.
Yeah.
Or you're embarrassed to go to somebody and say, I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
I'm in a quandary here, and I just don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And so that can be embarrassing for people.
For sure.
And so, these ego factors get in the way, and you have to get yourself past that to say, I don't have to know everything.
There's so much power in that.
Yeah. Yeah. There's power and there's relief.
Oh, yeah.
And knowing I don't have to have the answer to everything. There are lots of smart people around me that have had different experiences that have solved the problem I have in their own way before. I'm not the first person trying to solve this problem.
Really? Yeah, that's a very... mirror-facing thing that I think people need to realize for sure.
It is. And it's why I'm so excited about moving to my next phase in coaching, because in my career, I've had so many of those moments.
Yeah.
And I know everybody goes through them. And I know how hard it is to find a thought partner that you can rely on.
That has been there.
That has been there.
Yeah.
And that is willing to, you know, as a coach, there's a real tendency to just want to give advice.
Yeah.
Giving advice is easy. You know, there's no responsibility in that. There's not a lot of work in that. Well, let me tell you what I would do. What I've learned, though, is that, first of all, I don't know everybody's situation as well as maybe I think I do.
Yep.
And it takes some discussion, some questions, some learning to dig in and to understand what the real problem is, and not just accept the surface, this is what I've been told, as necessarily that's the real problem. To ask enough questions to get down to the root of what's really going on.
Mm-hmm.
And I find that some people haven't even done that themselves. They think they know what the problem is, and nobody has challenged their assumptions on even what the problem is, much less what are the possible solutions that we could dig into to try to solve this problem. And so sometimes people make bad decisions just because they haven't done the work.
So here's a question, because it comes up frequently in my life as far as when I'm working with clients or people in general, or even internally. Why do you think people are so afraid of actually getting down to the root reason? Why are they not willing to take on having the conversations of the layers and understanding that there's an impact for the things they do or they don't do?
Yeah. You know, it's an interesting question. And I guess the way I would answer that from my own experience is you want to get it done. You want to solve the problem.
Yeah.
And so sometimes it's expedient, and I think I know what to do. Let me just do it. Save me time, maybe save me money. And I need to move on to all these other things that I've got. So let me just get this one done.
Yeah.
And okay, that works for some things that are maybe minor problems and the risk is small. Mm-hmm. But often it's done with problems that are not small. And the risk of having the wrong decision or going on in the wrong direction is high.
Yep.
And we're all pressed for time.
Yep.
I mean, do you know a business owner whose life is not so full that they have so many things to do besides their family? There's so many demands of the business. Let me just get this done and so I can move on to the 100 other things I've got in my list.
Yep.
And sometimes you just need to slow down.
Yeah.
But it's not easy to do that.
No, which is the reason why people like yourself are critical to having your corner, because you'll be honest with them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you need somebody who's willing to challenge your assumptions, who's willing to tell you, no, this is not necessarily the best solution. Let's explore some others. Maybe it is, but let's not assume from the outset that this is the right solution.
Sure.
Or let me tell you how I did it before.
Yeah.
Without really knowing what are all the factors here.
Yeah, because your role at that moment ends up being you are pulling the rope, not pushing it. Because you can't force anybody to do anything they don't want to do.
That's right.
So from a tools and resource perspective, when you're going through this dark moments, or when somebody's going through this dark moments, what should they be looking for? What did you look for that was not necessarily the human person, but what tools and resources did you have to go either create or engage in order to get past this dark area?
You know, I think at those times the tools are more internal.
Okay.
It's developing the commitment to, I've got to stop doing what I'm doing and find a different way because the treadmill I'm on is not getting me anywhere. As hard as I can run harder and harder and harder, it's still not going to get me anywhere. So having the resolve to get that recognition and that I've got to get off this treadmill and find a different way to do something. That's a tool that's internal. to anybody, and so in getting committed to and admitting that the treadmill that I'm on it's the wrong path. You know, I keep running harder and I'm not getting where I need to get. It's the wrong path. So now how do I find the right path?
Yeah.
And then, to me, mostly the tools are people and advice and finding the right people who have an intention that they want to help and that they're willing to listen. Now, you know, sure, there are a lot of analytical tools. I mean, you can go to ChatGPT and think you can solve almost any problem.
Right.
And yeah, you can certainly get some interesting advice. Not all of it correct, you know, but it's an easy path. And sometimes you just have to find a wiser road to go down. You know, yeah, you need data.
Yeah.
All of those things, but mostly you need your head in the right place.
Believing in your gut. Yeah.
Yeah, believing in your gut, but sometimes your gut's wrong.
Yeah.
And so you've got to really question what you're doing, have other people help you with it, consider assumptions that maybe are not your assumptions, that might be different from what you're thinking.
Yeah.
And open your mind, because when you start to look at a lot of options, the right option starts to reveal itself and become more clear.
You know, you bring a point up about knowing your purpose or intention of what you're committed to. I'm really adamant about it. When we talk to our clients and people in our communities, it's like, if you need to genuinely answer the question, and what am I committed to? And the reason probably this segment is even, this portion of the segment is talking about like, what is the darkest moments? Because the people in your life actually will give you direction and sometimes directive. The tools and resources will give you the ability to know that, oh, I didn't realize that was available, or I needed to build it from scratch simply because it was a necessity.
Yeah.
But then you have the third part, is you've gone through it, you've experienced it, and now in retrospect, you are a much more dynamic human being because of that dark moment.
Absolutely.
So what did you learn, and what would you not change, even though it was ugly?
Yeah. How much time do we have? You know, I don't know if that was early in my career, but I'll share one of my favorite quotes is from Peter Drucker, who said, "God loves those best to whom he sends failure early." You know, we can all point to areas in our career where we failed in one way or another in our lives. And the earlier you learn how to be resilient and realize that everybody has failure. Failure is not terminal. I have an opportunity to come back from the failure. And what doesn't kill you makes you stronger. Are all part of a mindset that you need to have in order to work through that. What did I learn? I learned another time of, another opportunity to be resilient. I learned how to bring more people around me to help me solve the problem. I learned never fall in love with something that can't love you back. You know, you have to be able to step away from, the business doesn't love you back.
Yeah.
You know, and you can't love it so much that you are blind to the right decisions. And so you have to be able to step away and take a more objective look. You have to be willing to admit what I'm doing is not working. As hard as I'm working, it's not happening. It's not working out. I have to stop this and do something different. Those were, just key experiences and key lessons for me that, I've shared with other people.
Yeah.
They're hard.
Well received. They are hard.
Do I love talking about, the time in my life that was the biggest failure? No, I hate it.
Yeah.
But I've learned to accept it and learned to realize how valuable that is for me. and how valuable it is for other people.
You said it earlier. It's because that experience, you get to help shape someone else's life so that in hopes that they don't have to experience the same and yet different.
Yeah,
And that's a blessing and a gift.
absolutely.
And I don't think that many people realize that that is really the chain of how this evolution of generations really is connected.
True.
So you are now the marketing and branding and everything related in this realm. This is a realm that you've dove into. You have mastered in many ways. There's a battle in the world of marketing and sales. Which one comes first?
Yeah, well, nothing happens without a sale. You know, that's an old saw and it's true. However, my view is, first of all, a lot of people don't understand that sales and marketing are very different functions. You know, they're often thought of together as sales and marketing. And it makes it sound like they're one function. The disciplines are very different. The horizon, the thinking is very different, particularly on the strategic side of marketing. And my belief is that the marketing strategy of a company drives the direction of the company, hopefully toward the need of the customer. Sales job is to follow the strategy of the company to find the right customers at the right price with the right need currently and sell or facilitate help the buyer buy.
Yeah.
You know, nobody likes to be sold,
Yep.
but we all have to, and we enjoy buying. So somebody who can help somebody make the right decision to buy the right product is actually creating or providing a really valuable service, as opposed to, hey, I've got this to sell. You're standing in front of me. I got to sell you this today, right? And so if marketing is providing the direction and sales is taking the opportunities that come from marketing, you know, the execution of marketing creates opportunities, leads or interested buyers or, you know, however the opportunity is framed. Sales job is to take that opportunity and help usher the buyer across the finish line.
Yeah.
And the best way that's done is when it's good for the buyer and good for the seller.
For sure.
And so, in what I've just said, the marketing strategy of the company really has to come first, because we have to know what is it we're creating and selling, service or product, who's it for, who's it best for, how are we better and different from our competition for our target.
Yep.
We may not be better and different for everybody, but if we're intentional about finding our target, how are we better and best for them in what we're doing, and understanding the world around us and the competition and respecting the competition for what they do well, as well as criticizing them for what they don't do well, which is what we always love to do. But we learn from the competition. The competition makes us better. It makes us sharpen our focus. And so, and understanding that customer in such a deep way that you understand what they need and how what you do fulfills that need. That is all marketing.
Yeah.
Now, executing, communicating all of that is the tactical side of marketing.
Yep.
I don't discount that at all. But if that's done before the strategic side, so many business owners and CEOs think marketing is a black hole that they throw money into and they have no idea what comes out. And that's because there's execution with no strategy behind it.
So you are now, I think you had an era where you were one of the first people that were brought into a company called Chief Outsiders.
I was, probably the When I joined, there were about 4 or 5 other people that were active in the company.
And if you wouldn't mind kind of sharing about what did you do there? What's the company about? And then from there, we'll go into what you're doing today.
So at the time, Chief Outsiders was a very unique organization. Chief Outsiders provides very high-level, talented marketing and salespeople to middle market, smaller companies on a fractional basis.
Okay.
So a company that's a typical client of Chief Outsiders doesn't need and probably couldn't afford a full-time CMO at a high salary and stock options and bonuses and all the things that go with it. And they probably don't need that level of person all the time. Mm-hmm. And so Chief Outsiders provides those senior executives to those client companies, part-time, temporary.
Got it.
To help do a lot of that hard strategic work, but also create the right execution plan that can get it done. And today, Chief Outsiders does that in the marketing and the sales realm.
Okay.
And so, my role in the company, I started as one of the fractional chief marketing officers. When there were 5 or 6 other people in the business, nobody knew what a fractional chief marketing officer was.
Yeah.
So, having to explain that. And how in the world do you come into my company on a part-time basis and become the senior leader of marketing?
Yeah, and do a full-time job.
Yeah. And so we essentially created the category in marketing. There were other people who had done it before us in the chief financial officer role.
Right.
And so we created the category. We built a really nice company. We did what often happens in many industries, is we created plenty of competition. And so today, almost everybody knows what a fractional leadership position is. There are CIOs and CFOs and CMOs and chief sales officers and chief HR officers. It's a very common thing now. And so the challenge of Chief Outsiders now is to take that next level of differentiation, to take the category to a new level.
And you helped it build into an incredible company as it is today.
Well, when I left, and it's still growing, when I left my full-time role there, I have a very nice title of partner emeritus. And, I still do some relationship management and business development for the company. But when I left as chief operating officer, we had over 100 full-time senior executives on our team. This is not a loose consortium of people that sign up and, we'll toss them a project every once in a while. And what is so unique about Chief Outsiders is the culture that we built in this company. Because we have 100+ senior executives, very accomplished people who could easily say they're the smartest guy in the room as it relates to sales and marketing. But the culture is, no, nobody's the smartest guy in the room. We're all smart. Nobody knows everything. Let's help each other.
And there was so many verticals in marketing, right?
There's so many verticals, so many nuances of industry, so many nuances of marketing techniques, so many different ways to create strategy in different types of businesses. And it's impossible for anybody to know it all. Yeah. And anybody who says they do, their ego's gotten ahead of them. I'll just put it that way.
Yeah.
And the beauty of the culture was that all of these smart people are willing to share what they know, but also want to learn from each other.
Yep.
Willing to be vulnerable and saying, hey, everybody, I've got a client and I'm not sure what to do.
Yeah.
Can you guys come look at this with me and give me some suggestions?
The power of community.
It's the power of community. Absolutely.
Yeah.
And so today that is still, I think, the most outstanding thing about Chief Outsiders is that collaborative culture that's great for the people who join the firm, but ultimately really benefits the client because the client is getting the thinking of multiple people who are collaborating as opposed to just one person who thinks they know everything.
100%.
Yeah.
And so you now are in a new journey.
I am.
And not an easy decision, and yet a decision you made that knowing you thought of. And talk to me about that. Talk to me about what your next 5-10 years look like.
Yeah. Well, we never know how long we have. So 5, 10 or more years, who knows? But I'm at a very unique and fortunate point in my life that I don't want to stop working. I have too much energy. I'm not one of these people that can just, go to the lake house and sit and look at the lake and, chill for the rest of my life. That would just drive me nuts.
Yeah.
And so my new role in WisePath Advisory as a coach, a mentor, hopefully a board member, is to share what I've learned over my 40-plus year career of executive leadership experience with other people who are on their journey. It's that, turn back around and share the wisdom. I think over these years, I'll say I've developed some wisdom out of this.
Yeah.
And be able to help other people. Everybody's going to make mistakes. Maybe I can help you not make the mistakes that I've made. Maybe I can help you not make the same mistakes that you've made yourself over and over again.
Yep.
And maybe I can give you somebody to think with, to talk with, who will, your business partners, your employees, they won't always challenge you, especially if you're the boss. The boss of anything holds a certain position of respect.
Yeah.
And most people don't like to challenge the boss.
Yeah.
Either they're afraid of what the boss might think of them or what the boss might even do to them. If they said, hey, Emperor, you've got no clothes, boss, you're wrong,
Yeah.
and I'm going to tell you how wrong you are. That doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
And your spouse can't always have the perspective of being in the business and sharing some of those problems. The spouse always wants to help. They may not have the experience, and there's relationship issues.
Very much
so having an outside person to be a coach, to be a mentor, to ask you the tough questions that nobody else is asking, to say, that assumption that you made, Jason, is that really a valid assumption? Let's explore. What's the basis of your assumption? Let's see if that's really a right assumption. Are there other assumptions we could explore? Are there other decisions we could explore, different choices that you might make to solve a problem? Let's try this on. Let's try that on. Let's play it out and see how does it play out. There are very few people that can really do that with a business owner or a senior executive that reports to a CEO. And so I'm able to do that in part because of my experience, and just in part I'm a good listener, and I don't mind asking questions, and I don't have a dog in the race, or a dog in the hunt, or whatever people use that phrase. It's up to the person I'm coaching what the ultimate outcome is, but I can look at the different paths and help them figure out which is the best one. That's why I'm calling my practice WisePath Advisory.
Operations, marketing, sales. In today's world, there is technology that we just can't seem to escape.
Mm-hmm.
It is impacting in the way that people receive and push information.
Yes.
How is that, in your eyes, dangerous and or opportunistic? And where do we actually start blending it in for you?
Yeah. For me, and I'll freely say I'm not a technology expert. I'm always interested. I'm always trying to learn. There are so many people that are way ahead of me on the technology, but my philosophy is just like the hammer and just like the saw and just like the chisel, just like the drill, technology is a tool. And the minute we let technology make decisions for us is the minute we're in trouble. So we have to make the right decisions for the business and use the right technology, just like we're using the right computer system, the right truck, the right people.
Yeah.
All of these are tools to get a job done, and technology is nothing more than a very smart tool, and it's so smart it's tempting to rely on the technology to make decisions.
So I have a very one of my favorite quotes, and I think I've shared this with you before in the past, is, and I look at this as daily as possible when I was presented it. It was, or it is, systematize everything that's predictable so that you can humanize everything that's exceptional.
I love that.
We find ourselves in our entrepreneurial journey in always doing and moving and making adjustments and pivoting. And at times I have found, when I came into this quote, was that one of the things I never looked at enough was the areas of repetition. And in this era of technology is now being able to integrate and or create technologies that could streamline and automate. But to this point in this conversation you just made is never forgetting that you have to control the process so that you can truly be, which is the second part of the quote, of with who you want to be.
Right.
Where it really matters. And that's not easy.
I agree.
And sometimes you need to be reminded. And this is where someone like yourself could see things from the outside.
Yeah.
Because I think the times that entrepreneurs put themselves in a position where they're in it, sometimes it's even foggy. And we need somebody to kind of grab our hand and say, let's go.
Well, we're all in that position all the time, Jason. We're so much in our own world, in our own direction, and doing what we have to do to get through the day or the week or the month, that it does become a fog. It's the old forest for the trees thing.
Right.
You're so deep in the forest, you don't even look up to see the trees because you're just on this path that you're going down.
Yeah.
And, you have to be able to zoom out. And sometimes people need help to do that.
So, Clay, thank you so much for the time today.
Thank you, Jason.
I am eternally grateful, and you've always been a dear friend, and I'm so grateful to your time.
Thank you. I value our friendship, and I appreciate the opportunity to tell my story.